Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of The Curious Cat. Today I'm going to speak a little bit about cash and why all of the governments are moving to cashless societies, why there is the big war on cash at the moment, and what is the grand plan. So, you've probably noticed no one really uses cash anymore. Even if you pull out cash now at some of these retailers, you get a lot of funny looks. People think you're a drug dealer. They wonder why you're using cash. Everyone just is busy using credit cards, debit cards, etc. And they've really done a great job at convincing the masses to use these cards, to use credit cards, debit cards, etc. And there's a few reasons why they're doing this. So we'll get into that in this video. But if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, hit like on this video, share it with friends and family that might find this useful, and help me get some of this information out there. With that being said, let's get right into it. So cash, the war on cash. Why don't they want you using cash? The number one reason is they want to track every one of your transactions. They want to know about all of your spending. They want to know how much you're spending, where you're spending it, where you're getting it, etc. And the reason for that is they want to come after you for the tax dollars. They want to extort you for as much money as they possibly can. The governments are in major trouble here. They're all very exposed to the debt markets, just like the citizens of these countries. The governments are also exposed to record high debt levels, and they're essentially bankrupt. They're insolvent, as are most of the people. So as we enter these times, this major debt bubble, everyone gets a little more desperate. People start looking for ways to get money to help them survive. So that goes for the governments as well. So they're going to start coming after your money as much as they can. And the way they do that is by tracking all of your spending. So if they can show, let's say they can look at your spending habits, and if you're spending, all your purchases are done on credit card, on debit card, they can come in and say, okay, you spent $20,000 this year and you had no money in the bank, and you only claim that you made 15,000 or something. But essentially what it comes down to is that they can crunch the numbers. So they can tell if you've had a little more money to spend than you're actually claiming on your income tax, then you become a target for their tax collectors to come in and extort. So this is why they want to trace and track every one of your transactions. They want to know exactly how much money you have. And the other thing is by keeping people away from using cash, everyone has their money tucked away in these bank accounts. So everyone's got their money in these major banks. And what a lot of people don't realize is you think it's your cash, but essentially you don't have access to it. Right now in Canada, for instance, they've limited withdrawals to $2,000. So you could have $1 million sitting in your bank, and you could want to get some of that money to, say, diversify. Maybe you want to get a bit of gold, or you want to buy, a greenhouse for your property, or a tiller or something. So you go and you try and take out 5 or 10 grand to get some of your cash to buy some stuff. You'll be met with a statement by the bank teller that says, oh, we're sorry, due to COVID, we're limiting max withdrawals to $2,000. What a bunch of BS. Why would COVID limit withdrawals to $2,000? But that's what's going on. They won't give you access to your cash. You have a daily limit of $2,000, and that will only get worse from here. So if you do have money in the bank, I would highly recommend getting a good chunk of it outside of the bank, diversify into some alternative currencies, etc. But one of the benefits that people don't talk about cash, well, there's a few benefits. So one of them is that if you have it in your hands, then you're not at the mercy of the government coming in and freezing your account and not having access to your own money. And you're not at the mercy of the bank policy, for instance, like we're seeing now, where they're just limiting withdrawals. that could get worse. We saw it happen in Venezuela and in Zimbabwe when they had the currency crisis. People were trying to get the money out because it was devaluing so fast. They had major inflation there. Something would be $5 at the beginning of the day, and by the end of the day, that same good would be $50. So as you can see, if you had cash in the bank in that kind of a situation, you would want to get it out as soon as possible so that you could buy true assets with those phony government currencies that were devaluing exponentially. So if all your money's held in these banks and you are limited about how much you can pull out, you're forced to ride down the devaluation of those dollars, and you don't actually have a way to get out of it, to escape it. But if you have cash on hand that they're not able to limit your access to, then you can quickly go and convert it to something like Bitcoin or gold or silver, or you could buy, a greenhouse or some tillers or a new vehicle for the farm or whatever you might want to buy to get into something that you believe is going to hold more value than phony digits that are created by these crooked government policymakers. So that's one of the main reasons you might want to consider having cash on hand. Another one is you want to have access to your own money. You don't want to be stuck in a lineup at the mercy of the bank policies and limited on how much money of your own money you can access. That creates fragility in your own life and vulnerability. Why not just have it on hand so you have access to it at any point, and you have more freedom, more financial freedom, where you can actually do whatever you want with your money, as you should. So that's another reason. And another reason is that, by having your own money in your own hand and spending cash, they can't track what you're spending your money on. So I know a lot of people, they don't really care about all of this, like how much surveillance is actually going on. People just don't seem to care. They say, oh, I'm not a criminal, so why should I care? I have nothing to hide, et cetera, et cetera. But really, if you think about it, is it any of their business what you're spending your money on? And I'm a believer that we should all be doing all our spending in cash. I try and spend everything in cash. I do, I withdraw chunks of money, and then I do all my spending in cash because it's none of their effing business what I'm spending my money on. And I'm not a crook. I pay all my taxes, and I'm not buying anything illegal, but I just don't believe that it's any of their business what I'm spending my money on. And why make it easy for them to track? And the other thing is, when we're all using these credit cards, everyone's so busy nowadays. Like, what I noticed is when I use my credit card, I often forget to make the payment, and then bam, you're nailed with a 20% interest charge. So when you have cash on hand, you know how much money you actually have, and you don't run the risk of paying high interest on it. You're able to spend it whenever you want it. You don't have people telling you what you can and can't buy. Like, I went in not too long ago and I tried to pull out $5,000 because I wanted to make a purchase. And they said, oh, you can't get access to that kind of money. I said, I have money in the bank. Why can't I access it? Oh, you need to give us notice. We have to order that kind of cash. We don't have that kind of cash on hand. $5,000. And I had quite a bit of money in my bank account, and they wouldn't give me access to it. Very frustrating. I demanded to see a manager, and I made a big fuss, and I said, no, I want my money now. It's my money. Give it to me. Where is it? I deposited it. Where did it go? You better have it. And I made a big deal, and they essentially pulled out 2 or 3 managers, 4 managers. They all got into a little circle and started whispering and looking at me and blah, blah, blah. And they came up and they drilled me with a whole bunch of questions. They asked what I was buying. Really, it's none of their business. It's my effing money. You don't even have the right to ask me what I'm buying. It's none of your business. It's my cash. I made it. I was the one who chose to deposit it with your financial institution. You need to have it on hand to give back to me the second I demand it. This is a bunch of BS that they are limiting withdrawals, that they feel like they have the right to ask us those kind of personal questions about what we're spending the money on. That's ridiculous. So this is the kind of stuff I see that really makes me hate the banks even more. And that's why I like to diversify and get money out of the banks. I want to have some in gold, some in silver, some in Bitcoin, some in cash, etc. And to have less that's actually sitting in the bank. Because when times get desperate, you'll see the governments are going to come in, they're going to start auditing a lot of people. They're going to come in and they're going to go, oh, we audited you and looks like we don't like how you did your taxes. You owe us $500,000. You know, heading into a depression or a recession, they could come in and say that. And then what? You know, you thought you were doing all right, and then all of a sudden you have this huge chunk of money that the government's demanding from you, and they freeze your bank account so you can't even access the funds to hire a lawyer to prove otherwise. This is the kind of risk that you have when you're holding all your money in these bank accounts. So it's just something to be aware of, and have a little cash on hand, because you know, if times get tough and we start entering a hyperinflationary situation, the dollar, like we are right now actually in Canada, if you look at the price of gold, which is the most stable asset we can compare our fiat unbacked government currencies to, if you look at the price of gold in Canadian dollars or US dollars, it's skyrocketing. So that shows us that the value of these dollars are decreasing at an exponential rate. And what that tells us is you might want to consider diversifying and getting some gold, or getting something that's going to hold more value than these government currencies as they essentially inflate them away and decrease their purchasing power. And if all your money's tied up in the banks and you don't have access to it, you're going to be forced to ride that devaluation of the dollars down. And so this is all just for people that actually have a bit of cash. The sad reality is they've convinced people that basically everyone's living off of debt. The average Canadian, 50% of Canadians are $200 away from insolvency. That is insane. You guys, come on. Do it, if not for you, do it for your family. Like get some money in the bank, create some resilience. You want to be exposed to that kind of risk? You know, if we enter hyperinflation and you have no cash and all you have is debt, you know, and jobs start drying up, how are you going to pay for food? If a loaf of bread goes from $5 to $20 to $100 and it starts skyrocketing and all you have is debt, and the credit markets start tightening and they start shutting people's credit cards down, and you know, they could even jack interest rates like they did in the 80s. So all of a sudden rates went from, you know, 5 or 6%, they skyrocketed all the way up to 22%. So if that happens, you know, very few people are going to be using debt. And that basically, yeah, how are you going to pay for stuff? If you don't have cash, there's no jobs to get more cash, or it's very hard to get cash, and all you have is debt, and you have the liability of the debt. So you've signed an agreement to make minimum payments on the debt. So it just leaves you in a very vulnerable place. And right now, I'm speaking mostly to Canadians, but also Americans. But the Americans did have a pretty good correction in 2008, so they are in better shape than most Canadians. Most Canadians, like if you look at the charts about the Canadian debt levels and the savings rates and the inflation rate and all that, we're in a very, very precarious situation, and I don't see many people talking about it. When I try and talk about it, people just want to bury their heads in the sand, and it's because everyone I talk to is carrying insane amounts of debt. I just can't believe it. All kinds of people have student loan debt, they have mortgage debt, they have car loan debt, they have credit card debt. It's insane. And very few people have cash in the bank. So if we're entering a recession or depression and money gets harder to earn, and all you have is debt and you have these liabilities to it, that leaves you in a very precarious spot. And I'm trying to talk about it because I don't want people to be forced to sell their homes when the prices dip in a deflationary situation. But if you have too much debt and you're overextended and we do enter deflation because of an economic recession or depression, you may be forced to liquidate your home just to pay for the rising cost of living or for the cost of living. So that's why I'm a huge advocate of having some savings in your bank account. And I do discuss, I have some previous videos where I discuss some tips for saving money, for creating wealth in your own life. And it's something that I'm really passionate about. And I have started offering one-on-one consultations and stuff like that. So if you do want to kind of get your finances in order, get a financial plan, and just essentially, I'm really good at breaking it down, looking at all your liabilities, your assets, your monthly expenses, your incomes, and just getting a game plan for you guys to move forward. So far I've been making all these videos. There's no financial incentive. I essentially just want to get this information out there. I could be busy working. I'm an electrical contractor, so you know, I could be focusing on other stuff, but I really have been taking the time to get these videos out there because I'm worried for Canadians and Americans. I'm worried for their financial situation. So to me, it's important to get this information out there, and I would love to help you guys to get a game plan for you guys, to set some kind of plan in motion so that you feel a little more stable and grounded in your financial situation. So at least you have a plan in place. You know where you're at, you know where you're sitting. But a lot of people just have no idea. They're just spending away on their credit cards. They're racking up the debt. They're not even looking at their finances in the form of a balance sheet, their ins and their outs, their liabilities, their assets, and they really have no idea where they're sitting. They're just, you know, carelessly spending and burying their heads in the sand because they don't want to look at it realistically. So if you're one of the few that want to start taking control of your financial situation and you want to start getting a game plan in place, just send me a private message, contact me, and that's something I'd be happy to do. And for the first half a dozen or so people that want to sign up for something like this, I'll be offering a major discount, and we can do some one-on-one coaching and get you a game plan in place to make sure that you're moving into this with the best possible financial decisions you can be making. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope that kind of gives you an idea of, you know, cash, why it's important, why you might want to get some outside of the bank, why it's important to grow a nest egg, and just a little bit of history and insight into the money markets and the current economic situation in North America. With that being said, thank you guys again for tuning in. I appreciate your attention, and we're approaching our first 100 subscribers, so that's very exciting. And I know I'm just a tiny channel, but I do intend to keep growing. So please, like I said, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and share the video with friends and family. God bless and prosper.